Alrighty, so it's 7:10, so we're going to get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today at our third Fall Primary Recruitment Info Session. We're so excited to have you and hope that you've been staying safe and healthy amidst these times and that you've been enjoying your summer because in 2 weeks, we all got to go back to school and enjoy our virtual fall semester. So for today's info session, we're going to be giving you some insights on fall primary recruitment, and then we're also going to be talking about our diversity and inclusion initiatives and measures in our community. Just some guidelines for this. We're going to be posting this on YouTube for those who couldn't make it today, and also for you all, if you haven't watched our other two info sessions, those are up on our YouTube channel now. But since we are going to be recording it, we ask that you please stay on mute the entire time and keep your video off for your own safety and just for privacy. So as I mentioned, this will be on YouTube, and you can check out any other information about the Panhellenic community on our website, www.calphc.com, and follow us on Instagram at calphc for a lot of updates and information. So this is just an agenda of what we'll be going over today. We're just going to do an introductions of the 4 hosts we have today for our info session, and then talking about Greek life and recruitment overall. And then, as I mentioned, we'll be going over our community development and diversity initiatives. And then we'll also be answering some of your questions at the end. So just an introduction. Hi, I'm Camelia Edelat. I am the Panhellenic president. I will be a senior this fall, and I'm majoring in psychology. And some of the things that I'm involved in outside of Greek life are I volunteer at the local hospital, I do research at UCSF, and I tutor OChem.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Kapp. I'm the Vice President of Membership, and I am also a rising senior. I'm studying political science and journalism, and outside of Panhellenic, I'm involved with Bears for Biden. I am the marketing coordinator for the university. In addition, I'm a part of the Cal Greeks Alcohol Task Force, which is one of the associated organizations with IFC and PHC, and I'm also on Club Swim at Berkeley.
Hi everyone, my name is Jessica. I'm the Vice President of Communications. I'm also a rising senior and I study economics and media studies. Outside of Greek life, I'm involved in Greening the Greeks, which is basically a Greek-oriented sustainability club, and I'm also a research assistant in the economics department.
Hi everyone, my name is Maya and I'm the Vice President of Community Development. I'm a rising junior and I'm majoring in political economy. Outside of PHC, I'm involved in the ASUC diversity and inclusive initiatives for an ASUC senator, and I'm also in a professional fraternity focused on international relations and foreign service.
So we're just going to start off by talking about what Greek life is at UC Berkeley. So here we have 4 Greek councils. We have the Panhellenic Council, which is us. We have the Interfraternity Council, which is all the fraternities on campus. And then we have the Multicultural Greek Council, which is a cultural-based organization and consists of identity groups that include and are not limited to Latinx, Asian interest, LGBTQ+ groups. And then we also have the National Panhellenic Council, which are Black Greek-lettered organizations and are also referred to as a Divine Nine. All of these councils are comprised of sororities and fraternities, but we're going to focus on Panhellenic because that is who we are. So we consist of 14 chapters, 12 are nationally affiliated and 2 are local to Berkeley. However, even though we have 2 local chapters, they are still involved in the same aspects of the community as all the other chapters. We have 4 pillars that every single chapter in our community is based around, and those are scholarship, leadership, friendship, and service. And if you want to know any information on chapter specifics, those can also be found on the chapter directory on our website.
All right, awesome. Okay, so on to recruitment. So at UC Berkeley, we consider our recruitment to be values-based, which we define as one in which inclusivity, diversity, leadership, friendship, service, and other values that members of the Panhellenic community strive to embody are exemplified in all related activities. As you go through the recruitment process, the personal connections you are making supersede any superficial aspects that may be commonly associated with recruitment. Recruitment is a mutual selection process at UC Berkeley between potential new members and chapters, meaning that you're trying to find the shared values that you guys have in common. My biggest piece of advice to any potential new member is just to be yourself through the process, because the active members want to get to know who you really are. Awesome. So this fall, we are transitioning to a fully structured virtual recruitment cycle, meaning that all events and parties will be hosted online. Chapter members and potential new members will be using Zoom to attend recruitment parties. As an undergraduate student at UC Berkeley, you have access to Zoom Pro accounts, which you can check out in the attached link that Jessica has on the PowerPoint. Chapters have been working diligently throughout the entire summer to emulate our normal in-person experience for you guys, and transitioning it to this virtual platform through presentations, videos, etc. P&Ms will still have the opportunity to meet just as many active members as you would in person. We understand that this is not the recruitment process that many of us anticipated in any way, shape, or form. However, with that being said, all organizations and student clubs on campus must transition to virtual recruitments in order to be in accordance with university guidelines and to ensure the safety of our community by abiding by local, city, and state regulations. If the only thing that is holding you back from going through recruitment is the fact that it is online, I highly encourage you to still sign up. Time flies during your undergraduate career, which you will all soon learn. We will be recruiting virtually for the unforeseeable future, and there will not be another opportunity to go through fall primary recruitment until fall of 2021. Since not all chapters participate in the spring process, which we consider continuous open bidding, or otherwise known as COB. Which is a much smaller scale and informal process. Your undergraduate experience at UC Berkeley is limited, and as a community, we are making the most of this virtual membership process and online events. Due to the fact that everything is online this semester, formulating friendships may prove to be very hard for incoming students due to the lack of opportunities to formulate connections with other students at Berkeley. However, Panhellenic guarantees potential new members immediate friendships and a community of support during these difficult times. All right, awesome. So we have the recruitment schedule up here, and these dates as well are all posted on our website. So the first day of recruitment is orientation, which is August 26th, followed by Unity Day / Meet the Greeks. You'll be visiting up to 13 chapters on August 27th and 28th. The next day is Sisterhood Day, where you'll be visiting up to 9 chapters on August 29th and 30th. Followed by Philanthropy Day, which you'll be visiting up to 6 chapters on August 31st and September 1st. Followed by Preference Night, you'll be visiting up to 2 chapters on September 2nd, and then ending on Bid Day, which is September 3rd. I'd like to reiterate the fact that all of these events will be taking place over Zoom and will not be in person, and there will be no exceptions for that. These are the maximum number of chapters you will be getting invited back to at each day, which is not guaranteed by Panhellenic during the fall primary recruitment process. It is very uncommon to get invited back to the maximum amount of chapters, so you shouldn't be disheartened anyway if you don't get the maximum number. We highly encourage you to maximize your options and not single intention pref, and what that means is that you would be choosing to go back to every chapter you're invited back to more so than just one in specific. And just to reiterate, all of these will be taking place on Zoom, and like every single day, including bid day, will all be virtual in order to abide by the social distancing and Panhellenic community guidelines that we have formulated for this upcoming semester.
Cool. So we understand that with the COVID-19 pandemic, a big concern is finding community in a virtual school setting. However, we'll highlight both the sorority experience in normal times as well as the virtual experience. However, we want to emphasize that you should base your decision off of the connections that you build during recruitment and not what chapters can offer you in the fall. We also ask that you keep an open mind to understand the bigger picture of the Cal sorority experience, as that will take up the larger part of your time in college. While the social aspect is what people traditionally associate with Greek life, there is so much more to that. The 4 pillars of Panhellenic, as Cam mentioned earlier, are leadership, scholarship, service, and friendship. And I'll be diving deeper into a couple examples of how these pillars reflect in our everyday lives. So the first one is leadership. So all chapters have numerous officer positions in each chapter, as well as the opportunity to become a member of Panhellenic exec. You have the opportunity to join a variety of Greek-wide organizations, such as Greening the Greeks, as I mentioned earlier, and Cal Alcohol Task Force, which Lauren mentioned earlier. On top of that, PHC opens you to amazing networking opportunities with your chapter's alumni, as well as Cal PHC alumni. So the next pillar is scholarship. So we're all students before we're women in Greek life, so academics is very important to us. Through PHC, you'll meet women who are in your classes to study with together. You also have the opportunity to talk to older members who are in the same major as you and might have taken classes already that you're interested in taking, and they're very open to give you advice. Chapters also have libraries where members have donated old textbooks that are available to members. On top of that, on the Panhellenic side, we host study tables where members of PHC can study together, and we also have speakers come talk to us about professional development. Chapters also have study spaces for both live-in and live-out members to use for studying. So the third pillar is service. Philanthropy events such as raising money through events that chapters host is a big part of our community. Some of the events that we host are like selling desserts, open mic nights, dance competitions, arts and crafts. And then in addition, we also have volunteer opportunities where we go in and physically volunteer our time. The last pillar is friendship. Houses have membership development chairs that plan internal bonding events such as movie nights, cookie decorating, yoga class, etc. So I included a few other aspects that I think are important to the Sorority experience that are not under our pillars. So the first one is mentorship. I think we can all attest that we've gotten a lot of advice on how to best navigate college, also career advice, and then this advice is not just contained within the 4 years of your Cal experience, but continues on as an alum. The next one is living in the house. So living in the house is not required. However, it's a great option given the competitive nature of Berkeley's housing market for off-campus housing. Members of all years can and do live in their chapter houses. And some of the things that are included are meals, study spaces in the houses, etc. And then if you don't prefer to live in, you also have the ability to hang out and study at the house, eat meals, do the same things that live-ins can do. So lastly, our Panhellenic-wide events. So our VP of Programming hosts events such as Giants Night, which is like a baseball game, or a barbecue and basketball event. And then we also do like sister mixers, which is a formal way of mingling with members of other chapters. And she's also going to be planning a variety of virtual events for the fall. So now I'll talk a little bit more about the virtual experience. So many of the events that I talked about in the last slide will still be happening, but they'll just be happening on a virtual platform. So that being said, we've also had half of a spring semester online, and chapters have come up with some really creative ways to adapt to this remote setting. I'll be walking through some of the activities that we did last semester that could potentially reflect what the fall might look like. So on the Panhellenic side, we did Instagram live workouts such as yoga or HIIT classes. And then we also had sister mixers on Zoom. And then on the chapter side, we did like virtual baking or movie nights, events like that. And then I also wanted to mention that as a new member, you'll also have the opportunity to meet other new and active members, which can definitely help with the hardships associated with starting Cal during an online semester. So philanthropy events, which I mentioned in the last slide, will still and can still happen. So last semester, some of the things that chapters did was one chapter did like a TikTok dance competition, and then a lot of them do like Instagram fundraisers. Education is also a big part of Greek life, and we're continuing to do that virtually. We recognize the impact of the events that are happening in our world right now, such as the economic and health hardships associated with COVID-19 and the activism associated with the Black Lives Matter movement. Our chapters are continuing to educate themselves on how we can best support these movements and help, whether that be through philanthropy events, resource sheets, or watching documentaries together. I also wanted to mention that this is not an extensive list of how the fall will look like, and VPMs and chapter officers are all working together to share ideas on things that you guys can do in the fall. So for the most part, events between sororities will look very similar.
Thank you so much, Jessica. So now we're going to move on to the financial obligations that come with being a part of our community. So our council this year really wanted to emphasize the goal of transparency to all. So we really want to be upfront with you all about what it looks like and what it costs to be a community member. All this information can be found on our website, and I'll just go through it briefly here. So first year new member dues can range from $2,600 to $3,900 for the academic year, and they cover things like live-out dues and then also new member experience and initiation fees. And then live-out member dues range from $2,500 to $3,800 per academic year, and the range is because it depends on a chapter-to-chapter basis. And live-out member dues take into account for social events, meals, sisterhood events, housing corporation fees, study materials and textbooks, professor dinners, etc., just any event and programming that goes on within the chapter. And then live-in member dues, so this is when you're living in your sorority house, range from $9,200 to $14,700 for the academic year, and these encompass the live-out dues with room and board fees and housekeeping, etc. So again, you can find this information very detailed out and listed on our website under financial information. And it's important to note that a lot of these costs are going to be adjusted due to the pandemic going on. We don't have that information out yet, but hope to release it before recruitment starts. And those costs will still cover, for new member fees, it'll still cover things like your new member experience initiation, and then different things like housing core fees and other smaller programming events that can go on virtually.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little about community development. And I recognize when I first went through recruitment, I didn't really know like what it meant. So I just kind of want to get everyone on the same page with that. So PHC has the Vice President of Community Development position, which is me, and I'm essentially charged with just dealing with anything that relates to diversity and inclusion, and that's pretty broad. So that can entail things like like any type of infraction that's related to diversity and inclusion during recruitment and then throughout the year. But we also have community development chairs in every single Panhellenic chapter. And essentially I work with them throughout the year so we can kind of address community development throughout the year and not just during recruitment or, like every once in a while. So I'm just going to outline the current practices that we have in place and then go over some of our future practices that we're going to try to implement moving forward to make this more of a prominent topic. So every semester, community development chairs have to give a presentation related to any topic related to community development. These are usually really productive and really helpful conversations for women in Panhellenic because it gives them the opportunity to discuss with their sisters any issues they've had with community development and diversity inclusion, both in their chapter and in the greater Greek system. And it gives chapters an opportunity to dive deep into where they can improve and how can they support each other better. In addition to that, the community development chairs attend biweekly meetings with myself where we kind of go into those discussions more into detail and kind of discuss similarities in between chapters. There's a new bylaw that was passed, which states that community development chairs have to make at a minimum a monthly safe space for discussion. So we're going to try to move that into a virtual format this semester and continue those conversations despite everything being online. And then also every chapter is going to create a diversity and inclusion task force committee where community development can be tackled by more than one person in the chapter throughout the year too. And then other things like hosting PO office hours for anyone who's struggling with anything related to that. And then we also have a Panhellenic climate survey that's sent out where essentially I get to see what are the biggest issues happening in our community and how we can fix them, and then also things that are going really well and that have changed throughout the past few years. Great, and so I just want to highlight this. So we do have an implicit bias training requirement. So during pre-recruitment, I will be doing a implicit bias presentation to every single chapter, and that will be followed by presentations by the community development chairs alone with their chapters where they can kind of discuss what was said and how they're going to use or how they're going to take the concept of implicit bias and make sure that they're aware of that going into recruitment and the rest of the year. And then this year it was going to be done by the Restorative Justice Center, which is a local organization tied to UC Berkeley that deals with stuff like that. And then I will also be giving the P&Ms a presentation at some point to kind of talk about this topic as well. Okay, so here are future practices, and we include this in this slide just so we let everyone know that we do know that we have a lot more work to do, and we are very open to doing more. So given the recent events in our country and just everything else going on, we do think we need to do a better job and be more rigorous in terms of community development. So our future practices, these are not an exhaustive list, but include creating policies that specifically center racism and anti-Blackness, both in PHC and just in the overall campus community. Focus on PHC keeping the rest chapters accountable in terms of their requirements for community development and making sure they're staying on top of everything and that those discussions are getting done and that they're productive and just that things are really, really happening. We have a zero tolerance policy in recruitment with regards to blatant discrimination. I'll go a little bit more into that in the next slide. And then just more generally, more education, town halls, and accountability for everyone in the community, including ourselves. Okay, so here are our expectations for you, the P&Ms. So just like recruiters, you guys are expected to be respectful and engaged with chapter recruiters, your fellow P&Ms, and every chapter as a whole. Any type of blatant discrimination will not be tolerated by Panhellenic, and you will be subject to dismissal if there's an instance of blatant discrimination. I noted there other potential incidents are going to be more up to our discretion to myself and Lauren, and we'll kind of deal with that on a case-by-case basis, but just want to make it very clear that any type of blatant discrimination will not be tolerated. Happy to go into what that really entails if people have questions. And then finally, I want to encourage all of you, if you have questions or you feel comfortable during recruitment to, ask recruiters, what they kind of think about this topic, if it does interest you or bothers you. I know it kind of did when I was going through recruitment. And I think you'll find that a lot of recruiters are very receptive and they'll be able to answer your questions and kind of go into what their chapter is doing, what the community is doing, and kind of their experience with this.
So why join our community? There's a lot of reasons to join, and Jessica really delineated them for all of you, and they're all summarized here. And I really just want to emphasize the aspects of lifelong friendship to networking and mentorship opportunities. And I think most of all, at least for me, was making the Berkeley campus a lot smaller and finding a home away from home. And then one of the biggest things that we want to reiterate for you all is not to shy away from this virtual platform. At the end of the day, this is going to be one of your 8 or fewer semesters at Berkeley, and you want to make the most of it and make memories and make impactful connections. And this is one of the best ways to do so. Everything is going to be virtual across the campus, and everyone is going to be, kind of hanging out at home or wherever they are in their rooms doing their thing. So why not do it together and go through recruitment and join our community? So definitely consider signing up and just do it. I highly recommend. Just do it.
Cool. So thank you to everyone that submitted questions via the Google form. We're going to do like a quick Q&A session. If you have additional questions that are not on this list, feel free to DM us on Instagram or email any one of us. We're happy to answer any of your questions. So the first question is, are there any in-person events at chapter houses this fall? Will new members be able to move into their chapter house this fall?
Okay, I can answer this question. So for this semester, all the chapter presidents came together and we worked on a community guidelines document, which clearly states what we'll be expecting of each member who is up in Berkeley, living either in their house or out of the house. But basically, no events will be happening in person at all whatsoever. Most houses have no guest and no live out policies, which means that the house is only for those who are living in it right now, to prioritize their safety and to ensure that they're following as many city, community, university guidelines as possible. And new members will not be able to move into their chapter houses this fall, again, as a priority for those who are already living in and those active members. So basically nothing in person. So again, everything virtual, and that's how it's going to be until, the city or the pandemic goes away. But for now, we're looking at staying virtual.
So the next question is, what should P&Ms expect if they're staying home in the fall?
All right, I'll answer that one. So, as Cam has already said, the experience of being in Berkeley versus being at home or wherever you're residing this fall is going to be very much the same. There's no advantage to being in Berkeley for your new member experience. We aren't able to be in big group settings, so all events will be taking place through the virtual platforms that our community has agreed upon. So sisterhood events, philo events, sister mixers, everything will be online. So there's absolutely no advantage to actually being in the city of Berkeley. You're still going to be meeting just as many women as you would, but it's just going to be through this virtual platform. And then once everything, once we get over this pandemic, whenever that will be, we obviously cannot predict the future, but you will be reunited with all of these amazing people and have an additional 150 friends waiting for you.
Cool. So the next question is, what is the time commitment of being in a sorority?
So the time commitment definitely varies, and you have a lot of room to decide how much time you want to put into it, which is always what I really liked about being in a sorority. So I would say the main things that are usually mandatory are weekly meetings. So you usually have one weekly meeting that's typically mandatory, but you can always opt out of that if you have an excuse. But it depends based on chapters. And sometimes we'll have like new member sessions, and those are usually also around an hour a week. And then other than that, everything is usually pretty much optional, but it's always highly encouraged to attend. So with that, I think the time commitment is, pretty totally up to you, because even with mandatory events, if you have an excuse, you can opt out of those. But honestly, for me, going to more events definitely helped me integrate into the sorority a lot better and make more friends. And I'm sure that'll be very much the same with a virtual format.
So the next question is, what sort of activities such as philanthropy does Greek life partake in?
There's no limit to what Greek life participates in. I think one huge thing about being a Greek woman that we like to challenge is that you're not just a Greek woman. You've heard from all of us what diverse organizations and involvements that we have. So it ranges from philanthropy to research to volunteering to internships to scholarship opportunities. And the list is endless. You will find women involved in so many different things within our community, and they're always there as a resource for you. So it's basically endless, and there are so many things that you can be involved in as a Greek woman.
The next question is, at any point during recruitment, will we need to come up and physically be in Berkeley? Will I be penalized for not being in Berkeley during recruitment or in the fall? So I can answer this one. So all events throughout recruitment are completely virtual. There is no need to come up to Berkeley and physically be here. We'll all be online anyway, so even if you show up, there's really no advantage at all. And definitely you will not be penalized for not being in Berkeley at all. That is not in the consideration process whatsoever. And the next question is, what advice do you guys have for those going through recruitment? I think it would be helpful if all of us answer this question. So Cam, do you want to go first?
The biggest thing that I'll say is just make the most of your process. A big part of recruitment that a lot of people like to talk about is the fact that they made so many friends just by going through the process and those that they were going with together. So it's the idea that it's like a perfect vessel for you to meet new people. So make the most of it, introduce yourself to others who aren't necessarily those who are recruiting you, but are just in your little recruitment group or who you come across throughout the community. And I know it's going to be virtual, but still just make the most of the process and meet as many people as you can.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Cam. If you haven't watched our last info session from last week, we spoke about recruitment counselors and their role within recruitment. And that's kind of your first experience of a smaller group of women who are hoping to join Panhellenic, between like 15 to 25 girls, in addition to your recruitment counselor, who becomes like your first mentor in a way in the Panhellenic community. So it's a really good way to get to know people on a much smaller scale. And it's really nice to see where everyone ends up towards the end of the process, and to even like have girls that end up in the same chapter as you. I'd also really recommend to really take notes in between the parties about things that stood out to you about the sororities that you visit, because the parties go by so quickly. Especially the first day, the parties are only around like 25 minutes long, and you're meeting like 4 to 6 women at each party. So it's definitely a lot. You have a lot of names in your head that you're just like trying to like memorize and everything like that. But I would definitely always make sure that you have just like your notes that you're either writing on your laptop or on a sheet of paper next to you, so that you can think about, oh my gosh, well, this girl was talking about these values and that really just like resonated with me, and I would love to come back to this chapter. That's definitely a really important thing. And also just being yourself. These girls have practiced recruitment and are putting forward what they have to offer you, and it's your opportunity to show them what you're going to be able to offer back to the chapter. They want to get to know who you really are. That's what's most important to them. As Cam said, we are a community of women that are involved with many different things. So this is one small process and week of recruitment. It is important to remember that your membership within your organization is for a lifetime and goes much further beyond your 4 years of undergraduate at UC Berkeley.
My piece of advice is probably pretty similar to Lauren and Cam's, but basically really focus on the conversations that you're having and kind of try to tune out any white noise. Definitely listen to your heart and listen to your feelings, and try not to let other people's opinions distract you by any means, and really kind of like go with your gut feeling. And then another piece of advice I have is don't be afraid to reach out to your ROCI or PHC for help. We're here to be a resource for you to answer any question. No question is like too big or too small. So definitely reach out to us with literally anything.
I think the advice that I would give is definitely like the most corny, which is be yourself. And I really can't stress that enough. I think a lot of people go through recruitment and after they're like, oh, that was nice, but I kind of wish like I had been like myself a little bit more, or like kind of just like, said what I really wanted to say. And I would encourage you all to do that. And don't be afraid to ask questions that you want to ask. Obviously, as long as it fits into, what's appropriate and respectful. But don't be afraid to just have like, really like productive conversations with people. If you like have a question that you think, might set them off, but that it's within the realm of being respectful, just ask it. And also don't feel like daunted or intimidated by recruiters, because they're students just like you. There is like an age difference, obviously, but we're all students at the end of the day, and they're just having a conversation with you. So just treat it like that, and be yourself. And again, going off of what Jessica said, please reach out to us if you're having any thoughts, or if anything bad ever happens to you during recruitment. Please reach out to me, and we can talk through that. But overall, it should be a really good experience, and you should be having like great conversations with people. So if it isn't going that way, then just reach out to us and we can help out.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks everyone for sharing. So the next question is, will chapters go through spring recruitment?
All right, I will answer that one. So every single spring we do have recruitment, but as I said, it's considered continuous open bidding, otherwise denoted as COB. Not all the chapters go through COB. Usually it's less than half, and the chapters that usually participate are usually just recruiting internally through recommendations of active members. So we highly encourage you to go through the formal primary recruitment process, because you get to know all 13 chapters. And it's just a much better way to kind of actually find where you truly fit within our community. And, we don't know what this next year is going to look like for us in terms of who will be able to COB in the spring. So it's better just to go through the process now than wait until the spring.
So we have a few more questions. So the next one is, will I be disadvantaged if I'm not going through recruitment as a freshman? And what's it going to look like going through recruitment as a junior transfer?
I can answer this one. So the answer is no. You will not be disadvantaged in any way if you're not going through recruitment as a freshman. Many of my best friends went through recruitment as sophomores, as juniors, and it really didn't have an impact on what house they ended up in, nor did it have an impact on their experience in a detrimental way. Going through recruitment as a junior transfer is exactly the same as going through recruitment as any other grade level. So don't let that be something that discourages you from signing up, because we have so many women who come into our community through different pathways. So you'll always find someone who kind of paralleled your pathway, and it isn't a disadvantage whatsoever.
So the next question is, what should we wear each day for recruitment?
So, there's really no guidelines to what you can wear. I mean, you see us all on Zoom. It's literally just from like here up. There's really nothing in specific that you need to wear. The first 2 days of recruitment, which is the Unity / Meet the Greeks day, will be just like an audio call. So that'll be through Zoom. You will not be using your camera those first 2 days. So you could literally roll up in your sweatpants. You could roll up in your sweatpants every single day. We aren't going to care. So like I said, it's about the conversations. It's not about what you look like, how amazing your backdrop is for Zoom. None of that matters. It's about how you're able to connect with our chapters.
Cool. And the last question is, how are we supposed to visit each chapter's house and get a feel for the sorority itself if we won't be visiting in person?
Yes. So as I stated earlier, the chapters are working a lot on presentations and videos so that you're able to learn about the chapter's philanthropy, as well as what their homes look like, and just kind of get a feel for what it means to be a member of that organization. You'll still be meeting a ton of women in each chapter, which is amazing. And I still highly encourage you to go through the process, just because, like I said, we don't know when we're going to be able to transition back to in-person. So this is kind of a wasted opportunity if you don't go through recruitment this semester.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for answering the questions. That concludes all the questions that we have for today. We'll continue to have Q&A sessions on our Instagram, so be on the lookout for those. But either way, we're always available to answer any of your questions via email or Instagram DMs. Our emails can be found on our website. And something else that I wanted to bring to your attention is that we do have frequently asked questions also on our website. So if you go to calphc.com/FAQ, you can find that there.
All right, so to end today, I'm going to stay on the Zoom call for a little bit after the girls hop off, just to address any questions that potential new members may have in addition to what we have gone over today. So if you'd like to stay and hang back and just send me questions through Zoom, feel free to do that. My name is Lauren again. But just to end today, we're going to talk about the registration process. So you can go to calphc.com and you will go to the Fall Primary Recruitment tab and sign up for recruitment. And there's a form that you have to fill out, and you have to fill it out by August 26th, which is the day of orientation. This recruitment is painless, so it's free. We're very excited about that. And if you have any additional questions about recruitment, you can reach out to me, and there is my below email. So thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your interest in our community. And if you want to stick back and continue asking a few questions, feel free to do so. Otherwise, we'll see you soon.